Welcome to On the Fly College Edition, a podcast presented by Playfly Sports. I'm your host, Gene DeFilippo. Playfly Sports is the full-service marketing and media company bringing digitally enabled innovations to the sports industry. Welcome to On the Fly College Edition, a podcast presented by Playfly Sports. I'm your host, Gene DeFilippo. Playfly Sports is the full-service marketing and media company bringing digitally enabled innovations to the sports industry. Welcome to On the Fly College Edition by Playfly Sports. I'm your host, Gene DeFilippo, the executive marketing strategist at Playfly Sports. And today we're happy to welcome Rick George, the very successful and really talented Director of Athletics at the University of Colorado. Rick, thank you for being on the podcast.
It's always great talking to you, Gene. I'm looking forward to it.
Great. Hey, Rick, in a way, I've always called you Midas. You've had such a great career. And I'm going to ask you to tell everybody about it because there's a lot of young people out there that are going to be interested. But you're at the University of Colorado. You play for a national championship. You go on and you become the COO of the Texas Rangers, and you win 2 American League championships. Then you go on and you're a COO in the PGA, and you have a great career there. And then you come back and you've done a heck of a job at Colorado. Can you start by telling everybody your story, how you got to where you are, and some of the many successes that you've had along the way?
Well, look, the first thing I'd say is I've been blessed. I've been fortunate. I've had some great roles and couldn't be happier with my path. And I will tell you this, that there's a lot of jobs I thought I should have got. And now as I look back on them, I'm glad I didn't get them. And I think the path that I've gone has been really good. I'm excited where I am today. But look, I've had a passion for sports, and I started out in recruiting, and it's all about, being good to people that you're around. And, the reason I got to Colorado in the first place is I played for a defensive back coach named Lloyd Carr. We all may know who he is. And when Bill McCartney had an opening at Colorado, I talked to Coach Carr. He made the introduction with Bill McCartney, and that's probably why I'm sitting in this chair as the AD today, was because of the introduction that Lloyd gave me to Coach McCartney back in 1987. As you mentioned, we won a national championship. I left with Jerry DiNardo to go to Vanderbilt. I think that's when you and I first connected, when you were at Kentucky back in the day.
That's right.
Yeah, right. And
right.
So being able to go to Vanderbilt, I learned a lot about the external operations. Paul Houlihan gave me great opportunities. I thought I was really good at what I was doing, and I thought I could become an AD, and I couldn't get the job. And so I went in a different direction because of Bob Bodine. He had an opening in New Orleans running a not-for-profit foundation that supported children's charities in New Orleans through a PGA Tour event. I learned a lot there about how to manage people, how to understand budgeting, from the standpoint that every dollar we spent was taking away from what we could give to children's charity, and every revenue dollars that we raised allowed us to give more. So learned a ton there. The commissioner noticed me. I became the president of the Champions Tour when we rebranded it from the Senior Tour to the Champions Tour. I did that for 4 years, or 5 years, excuse me. And then the commissioner asked me to be the COO of the PGA Tour, and really was focused on everything, all of our events, player relations, rules, meeting CEOs, and that was great. Loved my time there in Ponte Vedra Beach. Got a call about a job at the Texas Rangers. I felt it was important for me to be in that role to really learn budgeting at a higher level, and with the significant budget that the Rangers had back then, we had some success. We won 2 American League championships, got beat in Game 5 against San Francisco in 10, and in 11 we got beat by the Cardinals, which I hated because I grew up loving them. But they beat us in Game 7 in St. Louis, and that was pretty tough with my family there, who are all Cardinal fans. But then I got a call from the chancellor. And again, I go back to being good with people that you work with, and the chancellor and I had a relationship in 87 through 91. And this opportunity came up 32 years later. He called me and asked if I'd be interested, and I said no, and my wife said yes, and she said yes twice, and I said okay, we're going, and here we are 8 years later, and I've been fortunate to serve on the NCAA Council. I've been on the Transfer Working Group. I've been on the Name, Image, and Likeness Legislative Solutions Group. I'm now on the College Football Selection Committee. So I've been real fortunate, real blessed, and happy where I am. It's really great. It kind of energizes you every day to be around young people. And we've got great men and women. And I tell our staff all the time and our coaches that if you can't come to work every day passionate about serving our student athletes, this is probably not a great place for you. Because we've got great young men and women that achieve at a very high level on the playing surface and off, and couldn't be in a better spot than I'm in today.
Yeah. And Rick, you're really busy. Can you tell everybody where you came from at noontime this afternoon?
Well, we just had our kickoff luncheon for all of our donors and businesses in the Boulder community, and we just had a 2-hour meeting with them, and our football team came down. All of our sport coaches were there, and it's really kind of a kickoff to the season. And it was a lot of fun having people around again. So, you get energized every day in here at multiple things, but just to have people back together again and being able to communicate and talk and engage, it was a lot of fun. And now we're kicked off, and we played soccer last night. We beat Colorado State 3-0. And so we're off and running.
That's great.
Now it'll be a sprint, and we know that the pandemic's not over, so there's still a lot of challenges and opportunities ahead of us. But really excited that we're off and running.
Yeah, Rick, your background, as you said, is very, very diverse, different than probably most athletic directors that come up, but I think really exciting in that you had some experiences that the rest of us didn't have. Tell me, what advice would you give to a young Rick George?
Well,
what advice would you give?
A couple things. One, the business principles from all the different areas that I've been, whether it's the Rangers or none of those change, right? And it's all about relationships, and it's all about being good to people and treating people the right way. I tell young people all the time is that, when you're in a role, keep your head down, do what you do it well. Raise your hand whenever there's an opportunity to do something. But you need to have advocates, and as I look back on my journey, and I've got a few more years left in me, but and looking back at my journey, I wouldn't be where I'm at today, or I wouldn't have gotten any of the roles I had I not had advocates out there that were out there supporting me and making calls on my behalf and would speak up on my behalf. And so the way you treat people, young people, get people that can advocate for you, because when you put your resume in a job, there's a ton of other resumes right there that look just like yours. What sets you apart? A lot of it is your practical experiences, but most of it is Gene DeFilippo calling on my behalf and saying, you ought to take a look at Rick George. People like that can help you through your career are going to be very instrumental to your success, because it's very hard to get a job on your own. You need that support system around you. Well
said, Rick. And as I look back on my career, the Roy Kramers and the C.M. Newtons and the Gene Corrigans had an awful lot to do with where I got to be.
No question.
Well said. You are always upbeat. You're always really excited. But what has gone on in your career? What several things have gone on in your career that have made it really special for you? What special things have happened that really excited you?
Well, look, I mean, the first thing is you got to have an incredible family, and I've got that. I've got an incredible wife that I've been married to for 38 years. I've got 2 phenomenal daughters. I've got 2 granddaughters. And whenever you have a bad day and you can go home to them, it's all good. And having that has been really helpful for me. And, just the relationships that you build along the way really make a difference in who you are and where you're going. And like I said, stop and smell the roses. I mean, we're in a business that we support young men and women. And, and being able to go out there and watch them compete and watch them play, that's probably the best satisfaction that I have in my role, is just seeing them grow over 4 years' time and see where they go into the future and how you've supported them along the way. I mean, all those things are really meaningful to me, because it's about the people. And that's probably the thing that was very difficult in this last year, is not having that human interaction on a level that we're used to having it, where I walk through the chow room, I call it, every day, the Crawford Club, and seeing our student athletes eat together and be together, and then being able to watch them compete. And fortunately, I watched a lot of them last year because I was an essential employee, I guess. So I was able to watch them. But just, I can remember last year when our men's basketball team came out to play Georgetown in the first round of the NCAA tournament. And as they come out onto the court, and they've got fans, our Buff fans, for the first time, and the looks on their faces and the excitement and the energy that we provided those young men before they went out there and played, it was really rewarding. And I remember our first contest that we played last year was at home against UCLA in football. And it was late. We didn't even think we were going to play in the fall. And, as soon as that toe of the opponent hit the football to kick off the game, I'm like, all right, we're back. And it was a challenge. It was tough. It was difficult. But, there are little things like that. But it's really about the relationships that you build, not only with your student athletes, but with your staff and your coaches and the people in the community, donors. I mean, some of my best friends now are donors that I've gotten to know over the last 8 years. And so those relationships, I mean, that's the most important thing to me in my journey, that I've been able to keep contact and connected with people that I've worked with over the years.
You can see what motivates Rick George, everybody. It's those student athletes. And
it is that.
If you're not student athlete oriented, you probably ought to find a different job. You agree, Rick?
Yeah, look, I mean, business is all about them. Your success is going to be measured by their success, right? And so I was just telling this group that we had at lunch today, all the business leaders, that one of the things that's most exciting for me is we've had 14 consecutive semesters over a 2.9. We had our two best term GPAs, cumulative GPA, in our history this last year, when our student athletes had all these pressures, all these distractions, had to learn how to learn remotely, and they achieved. And if you can't find satisfaction in that, if you can't come to work every day passionate about serving those young men and women, not the right business. And it's not easy. It's hard. There's all hours of the day and night. But the rewarding part is seeing them succeed, seeing them walk down the stage and get that diploma, seeing them get that first job. All those things make it all worthwhile.
That's well said. Rick, you mentioned some of your some of the people that called for you, that recognized you. What characteristics would you tell the young people out there that it's really important for a leader to have?
Well, look, you got to have integrity, right? I mean, that's number one. And I say that, and I don't want anybody to take that lightly. And you may say, well, that's just a term, but I got to tell you, if you're not doing things the right way, the people behind you are watching, and they're seeing, and they're always looking at you. And so the way you lead is going to be really important. And I'm one of the big believers, and I'm not going to ask anybody to do something that I wouldn't do. And that's extremely important, because we're all on the same level. We're all on the same team. I don't think people work for me. I think they work with me, and we work together to achieve a common goal. And I'm a big believer in strategic planning. I think if you're going to lead, you better have a plan, and you've got to get people to buy into that plan. They got to buy into the vision, because it's not my vision, it's our vision. You got to know what your mission is. You got to know what your objectives are to hit those. The vision that you want to hit, and it's guided us, and we're in the third 3-year mission on our second year, and we're achieving a lot, but we measure everything, and it's really important to measure what you're doing, because you know where you are and where you got to go.
Yeah. Rick, you have spent and raised approximately $200 million for the infrastructure and facilities at Colorado. Who helped you, or did anybody help you to put together a strategic plan? And how did you go about raising that money and also financing those wonderful facilities?
Well, look, I mean, it takes a lot of people, right? And, it's a shared vision that we all had. And I think, part of our success in fundraising is we built this great facility, $160 million facility that houses all of our student athletes. It's got the first net zero energy indoor practice facility. We built state-of-the-art locker rooms and office space for our staff, and a place where our student athletes could all eat together. And having that vision and a shared vision, because, look, whenever we do something, whenever we create our strategic plan and our vision, it's a shared process. And the best part of the process is the people that work with you on that process, because they're invested. And once you get people invested on a common goal, they're going to help you get to where you want to go. And, for us, we all saw the vision. We were told it couldn't be done, that you couldn't build an indoor practice facility on the area that we built it, but we did it because we were resolute. We knew where we wanted to go. We had a strong vision of what this would do for our student athletes. And now we followed that up with some programmatic needs. Our whole student athlete program is unique. It's about the wellness, health, and optimal life experience. Our concern is life. We want to make them life ready when they leave Colorado. We want to give them all the tools that they need. It encompasses mental health, nutrition, career, academic, leadership, you name it. Anything that touches our student athletes is ingrained in this program. And we just had a significant gift from the Crawford family to put their name on that to help us with our programmatic needs. And now we've got the things in place. We've got the facilities. We still have some other facilities we need to fix, but we've generally got the right facilities. We got incredible programs for our student athletes, and now it's about winning.
Great. And win you will. You've won everywhere you've ever been, and this journey will be no different. Rick, when you've hired some really good coaches. In fact, you've hired 2 football coaches, I think, in the last 2 or 3 years.
Yep.
But anyway, what do you look for in a coach? What are you looking for in a football coach?
Well, look, for me, it's different, right? I mean, so when the first coach that I replaced, we were really looking for somebody that was had a discipline was a part of who they would be. We wanted them to have the same aspirations that I did on winning championships. We wanted somebody with that kind of background that had won championships. And so, we hired Mel Tucker in that role. And then when he left, it changed a little bit. We wanted somebody that could maintain the discipline, but we also wanted somebody that was going to be stable for our student athletes. I mean, if you think about it, you have a coach for less than or a little over a year and they leave, and then you've got to replace somebody 2 weeks before the pandemic hit. And we looked for somebody in that case that had the right character, the right integrity, somebody that we knew was going to be here. And Carl had all 3 of those things. And he's got an incredible background, having been a head coach at UCLA 5 years, where he went to 5 bowl games. He's been in the NFL, had a lot of success. He was at Colorado in '92, working for Bill McCartney. He built his dream home in Colorado that we didn't know about when we first reached out to him. And so, again, I think a lot of that was, things are meant to be, and there was a plan, and he fit the plan, and he's doing a great job. He's really brought some stability to our program. I think our players would run through a wall for him. He's got the right character, the right integrity, and that's exactly what we needed.
Rick, you and I are college football buffs. Some people might call it useless knowledge. I think it's really fun and important. But as I look back on some of the great football staffs, there was one at Kentucky with Blanton Collier. They had Don Shula on the staff, and Bill Arnsparger, and just a number, Ermal Allen, just a number of people. Tell our young people out there what Bill McCartney's staff was, and how many of those guys went on and became head coaches.
Well, I mean, they all did pretty much. Coach McCartney had a great staff put together. Jerry DiNardo went on to do really good things. He coached at Indiana, LSU, and Gary Barnett had a tremendous amount of success. Lou Tepper, look what Mike Hankwitz just did, finishing his career at Northwestern. We had so many great coaches, but what Mac taught everybody is he taught them discipline. He didn't. There was no differentiation of who you were. He had a certain way he was going to do things, and you either fit it or you didn't. And if you got out of line, you were disciplined, and he would sit you down. And but it was really important for him that family was part of the equation. And every Thursday night, we all had family dinners, and it was really important to him. We let everybody go home early, but just his discipline and his commitment to his faith and who he was, really resonated with me. I learned a lot about him, but he was a great man. He is a great man, and he taught me a lot.
Yeah, what a great experience that was for you to be with him. One last question: when you are interviewing candidates for whatever position, Rick, and the candidates are very, very close in abilities, what do you determine to make the final hire?
So look, a lot of times I'll tell I'll tell my staff usually when they get to me, what I tell my staff is I'm not going to be any more than 30 minutes, and I'll probably be closer to 15. And to me, it's all about the person. If they wouldn't be sitting in front of me if they didn't have the right professional skills, right, to be in that role. And so for me, it becomes who's the best fit for us? Who fits our culture? When we developed our strategic plan, we had core values that are really important to who we are and what we do. And it's about respect, accountability, passion, integrity, and dedication. And if you put that together, the acronym's RAPID, and it's about a sense of urgency. And so for us, if you don't have those 5 things, I sit down with recruits in my office all the time on a Friday during the season. And I've got this sign behind me that's got our strategic plan, that's got our vision, our mission, and our core values. And I tell those student athletes and their parents, if you don't have these 5 things, this is not the place for you. And so for me, when I interview somebody, I want them to tell me who they are. I don't want to know about, are they proficient in this or proficient in that, because they wouldn't be sitting in front of me if they weren't. I want to know what kind of person you are, because that's where it's all about. Because sometimes these days get dark, they get lonely, they get tough, and you want to have people in the room that share the same values that you do, that are, and so for me, it's about the person. I want to know what's inside of them, who they are, and I want to know about their families. I want to know about, why they want to be here and what their career is, because as a leader, my job is to get people where they want to go. And if Colorado's not the right place and there's another opportunity someplace else, I want to help them get there. And so for me, it comes down to who is that person and how do they fit with the other people in our department.
Wow. Well said. Those of you who are listening out there, particularly you young people, just go back and see how passionate Rick is. See what is really important to him. It's people. He's student athlete centered, and that's what it's all about. Rick, you've had success everywhere you've ever been. We wish Colorado the very, very best, and we're going to have fun cheering for you and your team as you win championships here going on in the future. Well, I want to thank you for being with us.
Well, Gene, I appreciate you having me on, and it's always delightful talking to you, and you've been a good role model for me as well. So thanks for having me.
We're out of time on this week's On the Fly College Edition. I'm your host, Gene DeFilippo. Thanks for your time this time, and we'll see you next time.